Andrea, welcome to Craft Little Things. Today I'm just going to recreate this little lumiere. It's a little sort of oriental sort of themed box, light box with a battery tea light in it, and it's just really simple to make, but I've never done a demonstration on it, and this was a prototype actually, this one. But I made loads of these. I think it was about 50 or so of them for somebody who was having a wedding, and they were having like a Japanese garden type venue for the reception, and it was in like a lovely little courtyard, and luckily the weather stayed nice. It was a covered courtyard though, and these were dotted all around. I made loads of them. I think it's 50 I made. And they were dotted all around the venue, and they looked really cute. I did see photographs, and they had paper lanterns as well that I made that had tea lights in as well. But yeah, I thought I'd do a demonstration on it because this one sits in my office on a shelf, and sometimes I switch it on if it's a bit dull, just to, I don't know, just to add a little bit of light. And people often comment on how lovely it is, so I thought I would recreate it and show you how it's done. I have changed things very slightly. I did, as I said, this was my prototype, so I did change things from this. So the way I'm doing it now is the way that I finally did, you know, my sort of more refined versions. Okay, so let's get on with it. You don't need a lot for this. All you need is some black cardstock, a sheet of vellum, and the Artistically Asian stamp set, some basic black archival ink. Now, if you haven't got this stamp set, just look for one that's got, you know, maybe bamboo on it, or some sort of Chinese or Japanese writing or something, and that will do. I'm also going to be using a 2 1/4 inch die from the stacking. Do you know what? I can't get my words out today. From the Layering Squares Framelets dies. But if you haven't got a die, you can just cut using your paper trimmer, or you can cut using a craft knife, okay, to get that same size. I mean, that's where I'm measuring from, is on the inside of the die as well. So when the die is it's sort of 2 3/8 square, if I'm measuring from the edge, if you want to know which die to use. And I'm just using one with a straight edge, because you could use one with a scalloped edge, but these sort of things are very clean lines, so I just stuck with the straight edge one. Okay, so first things first then, let's just stamp up some paper, so that some vellum, so that we can leave that to dry while we're cutting and scoring the box. So I'm going to use, on this one I use more or less everything. I use the bamboo, I use this flower. So obviously you're going to be cutting out small pieces, so you're not going to have everything in sight. So it doesn't really matter, just be as sort of random with it as you want. But I'm going to use, again, I'm going to use the 2 stamps with the script on. I'm going to use this flower, and I'm going to use the bamboo. I'm not going to use that one, okay? I don't know if you could even see that, because I don't know if I had that on camera or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a whole sheet of vellum, and I'm not going to waste anything, because I'm going to do something with any offcuts that I've got from this, just to show how you can use up, because obviously I'm going to be cutting out lots of squares from the black that aren't going to get used. So I'm going to show you how you can use those. So give that a good ink in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly stamp it onto the vellum. So I think that'll do it. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. You just need to have that pattern on your paper. Alright, so we'll get rid of that and let it dry. And pop that away to put back in the box later. And that's it, you don't need anything else. So now you need a piece of black cardstock that measures 11 1/4 by 7 3/4. And then pay attention here to the scoring measurements. On your long side, you need to score at 2 3/4 inches, 5 1/2 inches, 8 1/4 inches, and 11 inches. Should leave that little flap on the end. And then on your short side, you need to have your thin piece at the top, and on your short side you want to score at 1/4 inch. So get that nice and precise, she says, as she goes off on a tangent. So you need to score at 1/4 inch, 3 inches, and 5 3/4. Okay, so you've got quite a grid going on there, and now you have to be really careful as to where you cut. So, because obviously you can't get this into your die cutter, into a big shot. So where you need to cut is, for a start, this piece here. The only piece of this you're going to use is this middle piece. So if you can see that thin skinny strip at the end there. So cut that first little strip off and cut that on a diagonal, and then cut it off at the top as well, because you don't need any more of that. The only piece you need is that piece on the middle row. Okay, now the only one of these that you need is this one. Again, can you see you've got 1 2 3 4 shapes there, and you only need this one, so 1 2 3 can go. And again, I am going to show you a project you can make using these, so don't think they're going to be wasted. So cut these two out all together, and cut this one out all together, because you only need this one piece, which is going to be your lid. Okay, now this piece is going to be the lid that flaps down, so just snip off those corners, because it'll just make it look a bit better finished, and it'll just help it to flap a bit better. Now you need all of these, because these are the sides of your box, and these are the bits that are going to fold up underneath to give you strength at the bottom. So just cut up each of these score lines up to that first horizontal. And if you're measuring and you're cutting and your scoring is really precise, you shouldn't need to do any notching in. This is going to be a front, which is going to be the last one that folds down, okay? So you get a nice crisp shape. So from the front of your lanterns, everything's nice and smooth and crisp. Now if you wanted to notch anything in, you could just notch in, just to take out some of the bulk, your two side flaps, which is this one and this one, and leave your front and back nice and bulky and dead straight, so that you're getting a really crisp line there. Don't throw these away, because I am going to show you a project using those. It might be my next project, it might not be. I'm not sure yet. Right, so once you've got all of those, then you can either do your burnishing, or you can cut these out first. Now, obviously this is measuring nearly 8 inches, so it's not going to go in your big shot, but you do want to cut out one from the lid. The only place you don't have vellum is on the bottom. Okay, so you can fold that over and burnish that one, that lid, and then you can run it through the big shot now like that, because these aren't going to be anywhere near your square that's cutting out. And this one you can run it through a couple of times and let it cut through the double layer. Okay, so you're going to position this as close as you can possibly get to centrally. Okay, if you want to do it really precisely and you want to measure it, then do that. If you want to stick it down, whatever you want to do that, but just run it through your big shot. Okay, so we're going to cut out all 4 squares and we'll be left with that framework. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Right, so when that's done, then you've got these 4 pieces, so they're of no use to you whatsoever for this project, but do keep those, because as I said, I'm going to come up with a project for those. If your vellum's taking a while to dry, you can always use your heat tool a little bit, just to dry it off, because sometimes it can take a while. Don't worry if you do smudge it a little bit, because it just, to me, it just adds to the aesthetic of it. It makes it look a little bit, you know, it makes it look hand painted. And when you imagine these sort of lovely rice paper things, that lanterns and stuff that are from this sort of part of the world, they were hand painted, hand designed. So it just adds to the authenticity of it for me. But if you're a bit of a perfectionist, then you might not like that. Right, so while that's drying still, I'm just going to burnish these score lines, and some of them are really, really fiddly because they're tiny little score lines. The reason they're so small, like the reason this flap's so small, is because obviously you don't want it to show through, so it can only be sort of 1/4 of an inch, otherwise it's going to show through from the other side. So just be really careful. You don't have to be that careful with this because it's a good quality cardstock, so it's not going to tear into little pieces or anything. But just get those score lines burnished right. And you might end up with some marking, especially where you did your double one. You might end up with some marking from your die, but that doesn't matter. To me, I think that just adds a bit of something. It sort of adds a little bit of detailing. Just get those nice and crisp. The bottom one being, I mean, you could use less cardstock for your bottom, but I think because the nature of the nature of the piece is that it's very flimsy, that nice strong bottom kind of just gives it that added strength, so it makes it feel less flimsy. Now what you can do is you could, if you wanted to, just stick your vellum on in one piece and cut around it. That would be an easy thing to do. I personally don't think it looks as good as if you cut out the 5 sections and put them on. Just make sure your edges are nice and sharp if you've got any little straggly bits. So then obviously what we're going to do is we're going to put 5 panels on here, and you can glue it with whatever you want to glue it with. I'm going to glue mine using snail because it's just no, I'm not. I'm going to glue mine using Tombow because I have Tombow I need to use up. Because I told you a while ago that I had about 6 Tombows on the go, and I'm down to 2 now, so I want to get down to where I've only got 1 on the go. So I'm going to use Tombow. Right, so if this isn't dry yet, like I said, just get your heat tool and dry it with that. Your paper's a little bit lumpy as a result. Just run some heat over the other side. And that just helps to flatten it back down. It's not going to matter. Okay. Now that should be dry. You watch me wipe my hand over it and it's not. Yeah, that's dry now. So yeah, so you could do that. So now your little squares are 2 3/4. So what I'm going to do is, you could use a die again to cut your insides, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut them using a trimmer. Remember, you do need 5. It's easy to forget and just do 4 because you're thinking of a 4-sided box. And then you've got all that vellum left to do something else with. Right, so now just position your panels wherever you want them and decide if you want the inked side on the inside or the outside, because it can look more subtle if you've got your ink side on the inside. So if you look, that's a bit darker, that's a bit lighter, so it's up to you whether you want that on the outside or the inside. You can choose your best pieces to put on the front. That's a lovely piece there. I mean, they should all be good pieces. I'm going to put that bit over there because that's quite heavy on the okay, so you need to just run your tape down. Just run it right down there and run it right down there. And if you want, you can do this on a silicone mat so that you're not getting anything left over on your sides. And then it's just to make your box, to put your box together now. So all you need to do is get your little flap here, this little flap here, run some glue down that, run it over, fasten it together, and these, if you are delivering these to a customer, you can deliver them flat like that, and then when they can just assemble the bottom and just add a little bit of glue to assemble the bottom if you're posting them out, okay? So I personally, I would add glue, a bit more glue than that. I'd put some on this bottom flap. This is the front, so this is the back. So I've put some on this back flap here. run it nice and tight down the sides to get a nice tight finish. Keep your box nice and square. Again, this is where keeping, by not notching in, you know that you've got it square because you know that these sides are perfectly lined up. If you notch in, you could go off the square with that. And then again, run it right up to the edge if you're using snail. And pop it on. Now again, if you were making these for a customer and you were going to send them out flat, what you could do is add double-sided tape there, so that they, when they pop them up, they can add the tape, tear off the tape and glue them themselves. So there you go. Now I think this one, you'd admit, is a little bit nicer than the prototype. Okay, so I'll just stick the candle light in, and please, you know, don't use real tea lights. It goes without saying, but some people think that we do put real tea lights in things. And there we have it, a lovely Zen light box. It's really cute, and they do look gorgeous out in the garden. And I mean, obviously they're not durable enough for the garden. I suppose if you cover them in PVA glue, they would be. But they're good to have out there on a nice balmy summer's evening, just dotted around the garden, just twinkling away. They look really lovely in the dark. So that's just an idea for you. And like I said, you know, this little edging, actually I like it. I think it gives it a little bit of something. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and if you do make some, then do hashtag, and you share them on Instagram, do hashtag Craft Little Things UK so that I can see them, because I do love to see what people have made using my inspiration. So thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, bye bye.